Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. We are so glad you're watching this. I'm Asa. At Microsoft, I'm on point for everything developers need to build, migrate, and scale Java apps on Azure. I'm also a Java dev. I started in 1995 with JDK1 and have been having an amazing time with Java for 26 plus years. Today, let's dive into Spring Apps. Spring is very popular among Java developers, and it is the framework of choice for building cloud native applications. Azure Spring Apps is a fully managed service for Spring Boot apps that lets you focus on building and running the apps that run your business without the hassle of managing infrastructure. You can simply deploy your jars or code, and Azure Spring Apps will automatically wire your apps with the Spring runtime. Once deployed, you can easily monitor application performance, fix errors, and rapidly improve applications. It is integrated into Azure's ecosystem and enterprise ready. The service is jointly developed, operated, and supported by Microsoft and VMware. Customers. Customers such as Kroger, Leantis, Morgan Stanley, Swiss Re, FedEx, and many others can focus on building innovative application experiences instead of spending their valuable resources on managing and scaling infrastructure. A great example of how a customer is using Azure Spring Apps to run their Java apps at massive scale is FedEx. They are leveraging the Microsoft and VMware collaboration on Azure Spring Apps to deliver an impactful solution for their end customers. FedEx Global Delivery Prediction Platform, or GDPP, is a Java-based solution. It's running on Azure that helps predict estimated delivery times for millions and millions of packages, about 16 million packages a day. GDPP dynamically predicts estimated time of arrival for shipments, which has great benefit for customers with time-sensitive deliveries in industries like manufacturing, healthcare, and construction. FedEx launched several cloud applications fueled by data to create differentiated value for their end customers across industries. These applications, they run at cloud scale and integrate back into on-premises data center. Now, given the volume of shipments, all parts of this application need to operate at cloud scale with high reliability and availability. Azure Spring Apps is the primary compute for processing high volume messages for GDPP. FedEx chose Azure Spring Apps because of its ease of use and auto scaling capabilities, and the fact that it is a fully managed service. The tight integration with other Azure services also enabled FedEx to move quickly with confidence in building and delivering the application as part of their worldwide web presence. You are now seeing an active FedEx dashboard that shows high volume of shipments and how they are dynamically predicting delivery times. Azure Spring Apps is a fully managed service for Spring Boot apps that lets you focus on building and running the apps that run your business without the hassle of managing infrastructure. Let's look at a little more details. The rectangle, the big rectangle that you see, is Azure Spring Apps. It is built on Kubernetes. Each service instance has two dedicated Kubernetes clusters. They are managed by Azure Spring Apps and abstracted away from users. The service runtime with managed Spring Cloud components, app lifecycle, log streaming, and many more service runtime components are managed in the right side Kubernetes clusters. Your apps, they're running in the left cluster in the diagram. Your apps can interact with any Azure service or external service or on-premises systems. Now the logs, metrics, and alerts, they are available through Azure Monitor. You can monitor end-to-end using any tools and platform of your choice. You can secure your apps using Azure Active Directory or any other directory of your choice. You can automate end-to-end using your favorite tools and platforms. You can continue to use development tools that you're familiar with. IntelliJ, VS Code, Maven, Gradle, and you can even deploy using tools like IntelliJ and Maven. Net, it's an easy way to get started. You can focus on your business objectives. Everything else is taken care for you in the cloud. Now, do you have to manage anything here? No, not at all. You do not have to manage anything. Azure Spring Apps has absorbed all the complexities with infrastructure, hosting applications, application lifecycle, managing applications, blue-green deployments, publishing logs and metrics, and the list just goes on and on and on. Now, everything is supported by Microsoft and VMware. As you get started, there are 3 simple steps. Just 3, right? Azure Spring Apps is as simple to spin up as it is powerful, and it follows these 3 simple steps that you see here. The first one, create a service instance. Next, you can create an app within the service. And finally, deploy the application binaries or source to Azure Spring Apps. Azure does all the hard work for you. All you have to do is point it in the right direction. It really is that simple. Now, once your apps are up and running, they can connect with Azure services. We have made it possible to leverage the full power of Azure from your Spring Boot apps, and it's getting easier to do so every day. We have a sizable team invested in building all these connections for you. We provide mechanisms to connect and interact with databases, messaging systems, eventing systems, cache, storage, directories, and so much more. Enterprise is the new tier, and it is generally available for you. Enterprise delivers even more productivity, and you can leverage Spring Experts to make your projects even more successful. Tanzu components provide new capabilities designed for enterprises running Spring applications at scale. Today, we're going to show you some of these features as part of a demo. You can deploy and manage Spring applications and polyglot applications built using Node, Python, Go, and .NET. With the fully managed Spring Cloud Gateway, you can route any client request to apps and address cross-cutting considerations for those apps behind the gateway. Cross-cutting considerations like configuring single sign-on for end users using your preferred identity provider, including Azure Active Directory, or considerations like request rate limiting, and many more features like these. Support and expert guidance for Spring projects let you develop and deploy applications faster. Candice is here, and she will now show us a demo of many of these features that we talked about.
Hello, my name is Candice Quates, and I'm an engineering manager at VMware. I'm excited to show you Azure Spring Apps Enterprise tier. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to use a fitness store application to illustrate some platform features here. To demonstrate that, I'll be ordering a few things. Let's look for a bicycle. Here's one. We'll add it to the cart. Next, I want a water bottle, so let's add that one to the cart too. Hopefully it's insulated. And go to our cart and see all of our items and proceed to the checkout. Add an address. Done. Choose a shipping speed. Sean's tractor. Add a credit card number. And continue to review and hit place order. And it succeeded. Great. Here's the Azure portal where this Azure Spring Apps deployment is running. You can see the Tanzu components on the left side. And here are the apps that make up our fitness store, like the catalog, the front end, and the cart. The repository for this application is hosted on GitHub, and it has detailed instructions to get started. You can do everything I'm showing today by following the instructions in this repository. Now, I also have this open in VS Code. Here's one of the Spring Boot apps, the Catalog Services Controller. I also want to show the front end, which is written in JavaScript. It's a Node app. It runs in Azure Spring Apps too. Now, this is a common app architecture that we're all familiar with. The sample app has a similar architecture with multiple applications, a gateway, a database, security services, monitoring, and automation. We support many different languages and Azure services. Let's start from scratch and create an Azure Spring Apps service instance in the portal. As you can see, we already have Enterprise tier selected, and we've chosen a name and a region. The Tanzu components are here, and support for the entire Spring runtime is included. Tanzu Build Service is included by default as well. The rest of the components can be added and configured as needed. Service Registry, App Config Service, Spring Cloud Gateway, and API Portal. When we're done here, we can go to the Review and Create button and see what we've selected to create an instance. Now let's go to the Azure CLI and create an app for our payments. There we go. After this is created, we can deploy a Spring Boot application into this payments app container. So let's deploy command here. And what this is doing is it's uploading our sources and building a jar. Then it's putting the jar in a container and deploying that container into Azure Spring Apps. It's almost there. Building, succeeded, updating deployment, all right. We're also going to create an app to hold our front-end deployment. It's written in JavaScript. In the deploy command, we're going to upload source files. Tanzu Build Service will apply Node.js build packs to build an image in a container and deploy that. We're also going to configure Spring Cloud Gateway to route traffic to the front-end app we've just deployed so we can see everything. Let's open the Azure portal for our apps. Over here, we should be able to see 6 services running. Yep, there we go. And we can take a look at Spring Cloud Gateway's routing rules. You see the cart here, and if we scroll down a little bit, we'll be able to see the rules for the catalog. And we'll go to the main gateway page and jump into our application just to show that it's all running. There we go. Here's our stuff. This is API Portal, and it's showing all the routes that are set up in our instance of Spring Cloud Gateway. Here's the cart and the catalog, for example, the route for the front end, which just goes everything, SSO and the users. Let's choose the catalog to show how to test an endpoint. Let's click Products and hit Try It Out, and then Execute here. Let's scroll down, the request succeeded. And if we scroll down a little more, we can see the server response. And we got a yoga mat here that can make you an instant professional with barely any work. Awesome. We started from scratch, deployed our apps, created a database and connected the apps to it, and configured Spring Cloud Gateway. We have an app registration in Azure Active Directory to allow us to sign into our app to place orders. We've configured redirect URIs for Spring Cloud Gateway and API Portal that are running on our Azure Spring Apps service instance. Let's configure single sign-on for the apps that make up our fitness store. For that, we'll update Spring Cloud Gateway with the values from our app registration. And then we'll add a route config for the identity service to secure the login endpoint. We can see and edit the SSO configuration in the portal as well. And then we can go to our landing page to jump to the fitness store to make sure it's all still working. Let's log in. Login button. Since we're already logged into Azure, it's seamless. And we can click the login button again when everything comes back up, and you can see my name logged in. We've added Active Directory to our app architecture. We have a key vault to hold all of our fitness store application secrets. All of the app secrets are here, such as database information that the apps need to know, credentials and connection strings, information monitoring credentials and SSO URIs. For all our apps, we've granted access to read these secrets directly from Key Vault, where no one else can see them. Let's tell the catalog service to load secrets directly from Key Vault. That's all it takes. We can now open the portal and go to the store. and see all the items in the catalog retrieved from that database. We've configured the apps to load secrets from Key Vault, where only the apps can load secrets directly into memory, with no code changes or recompiling needed. Only the apps can see secrets, no one else can. This is zero trust in action. Right now, everything is up and running, but when something isn't working as developers, we need logs. This query shows error logs and exceptions for all our running apps that make up the fitness store. We can refine that by lots of different criteria. For example, here are all the logs for the catalog service. We can look at logs for the service components as well. Let's look at the Spring Cloud Gateway logs. This is where we can debug our route configurations, and we can see that I need to look at an exception later. If our apps are having trouble communicating with each other, we can troubleshoot app registrations in the logs for service registry. There are many more options to build queries, and it's easy to do. Just tab complete your way through the query builder. Now, if you're an engineer like me, you also don't want to go to a portal to see logs all the time. You want to tail logs from the command line for your running apps. You can do that like this in the AZ CLI. And here are our logs. Let's look deeper into our fitness store application with Application Insights. By looking at the application map, you get a 10,000-foot view of all the components and their dependencies. Let's take a closer look. This is the identity service, the order service, and the payment service. You can scroll down a little to see our catalog service over here. There it is. And back up to see the cart. There. Now for our components. This is Active Directory. You can see the login URL on the side. Here's our Key Vault, where you see the calls for secrets. Scroll down to find Service Registry. It's right here. And we can take a look at Postgres. Let's go into Postgres to see how our queries perform. Here are all the calls that translate into SQL calls. And the individual queries are right here. Before we get into those individual queries, let's look at all the calls in the application. Let's click on the product call to query the catalog. Here it is. And we can drill into Postgres. And by clicking over here, we can see the exact SQL query for products that originates from Spring Data JPA. That's super cool. We can also see the exceptions, and you can drill into those to see stat traces just like we saw in the logs. As requests are coming in, we can watch them with live metrics which have less than 1 second latency. Here are all the calls going in, and all the servers powering the fitness store over here. We just monitored our apps and dependencies from end to end, all of this without writing any Java code. All these cool charts come by default. We used Application Insights, Log Analytics, and Azure Monitor, but you can also turn them off if you want. You can monitor end-to-end using entity monitoring tools and platforms of your choice, such as New Relic, Dynatrace, AppDynamics, Elastic, or Splunk. Let's go further and automate our work with GitHub Actions, so that we do not need to build and deploy apps by hand. Here you can see a provisioning workflow, and we've set up a workflow for each of our apps in our fitness store, and a cleanup workflow to deprovision all the things. Let's zoom into the provisioning workflow. We're provisioning everything with Terraform here, and we can see all the steps involved, such as setting up Terraform, creating up an instance, setting up the extension. Scroll down a little bit to see all the different components being configured, such as app config service and Tanzu build service. Let's take a closer look at configuring Spring Cloud Gateway. Let's scroll down a little bit to get to it. Here it is. So if I click into that, we can see what's it doing. It's assigning an endpoint so that we can reach our Spring Cloud Gateway from the outside world and see our application. Now that provisioning is done, let's look at deploying the catalog application. We can see the build succeeded, so let's look at the steps. Here's the setup of JDK 11 over here. And we can look at the setup of, say, the Azure Spring extension right here. Nice and simple. And here are the deployment logs over here. As we scroll down, we can see Tanzu build service starting up here. Scroll down and start seeing our build packs being applied. And in a moment, we'll see Gradle. Now, all these things the logs are all right next to the source in GitHub, so you can find them when you need them. They're linked to the commit they're based on. You just saw us automating everything from idea to production using GitHub Actions. We use pipelines to provision, build, and deploy. You can have any number of pipelines just like this. You can automate end-to-end using any tools and platform of your choice, because everything can be done from the command line. So we started from scratch, deployed apps connected to a database, configured Spring Cloud Gateway and single sign-on, managed secrets using Key Vault, monitored end-to-end, and automated end-to-end. Everything I did today is all available on GitHub, including step-by-step instructions to deploy everything here. All you have to do is go to aka.ms/fitness-store. I'm Candace Quates, and this has been a demo of Azure Spring Apps Enterprise tier. Thank you.
Candace, that's an amazing demo. Thank you. Thank you. You all saw the power of Azure Spring Apps running on Kubernetes, but you do not have to learn or manage Kubernetes. All taken care of for you. Now, those apps that you saw in the demo, all those apps are portable. You can deploy the same apps anywhere, any cloud provider, or any on-premises machines. You can also secure those apps using virtual networks. You can configure single sign-on for users using your preferred identity provider, including Azure Active Directory. You can manage application secrets using Key Vault. You can define roles and responsibilities for actions on these Azure resources to manage your team structure using Azure Role-Based Access Control. We are talking about developers, SREs, DevOps, managers, architects. You can match their roles to role-based access control. You can also secure communications end-to-end or terminate at any point of your choice. Your container operating system, JDK, and monitoring agents are always up to date with auto patching. You can drive maximum usage of resources using auto scale. You can monitor end-to-end using any tool and platform of your choice. You can automate end-to-end from idea to production using any automation tools and platform. You can also leverage existing investments. There is no need to change at all, particularly your existing investments in network, monitoring, automation, identity providers, on-premises systems, tools, and app libraries. Everyone watching today, you can build cloud solutions and advance them to production. We love to hear how you are building impactful solutions using Azure Spring Apps. You can get started today. You can deploy your first Spring Boot app today. You can also use a self-paced workshop to learn the details of the service. If you prefer videos, we have great bite-sized YouTube videos for you. Simply follow the Spring playlist. You can also leverage best practices for deploying Spring Boot applications. You should let us know how you are building impactful solutions. You can start today. As you saw, you can ship faster and unlock Spring's full potential. On behalf of Candace and myself, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you. Thank you again.